I am Rosie, a 16-year-old girl from New York. I witnessed something strange and extraordinary and wanted to share it with the world. I was born in the city that never sleeps, New York. But life had become very expensive lately. At least that's what Mom and Dad say. They both worked, but that never seemed to be enough for us. That's why we decided to move to somewhere cheaper, New Jersey. We moved on a random, rainy day and left behind our apartment and all of our friends. It was the saddest day of my life, but I didn't want to complain because Dad couldn't find a new decent job. I knew that this was for the better, for everyone. But I had never changed home before, so all of this was new to me. A million thoughts were rushing through my mind on our drive to our new home. But I got a glimpse of the city, and it didn't look bad at all. It was a long drive, but we finally arrived at our new home. The house was up on a hill and was massive. There were a lot of windows. Some leaves had fallen from the trees all over the ground. It looked like nobody had walked into the house for a long time. The garden was huge, and it felt good that we could park our car wherever we wanted, unlike in New York. But I looked around and noticed that our house was far from the other homes. We didn't have any neighbors. How boring. We decided to go in after some minutes of exploring the outside. The second that my foot hit the house's porch, the wood that the porch was made with made noises. It was so old and dirty. We opened the door, and the first thing that we walked into was the living room. The living room was surrounded by big windows. There was a lot of light coming from the outside, making the dust look even worse. There was a fireplace, a piano, and some music records. It looked like the stuff was ancient. It looked like the people who had moved out and left everything that they belonged behind. I liked the vibe of this house, even though it was kind of scary. We went to the next floor and noticed that there were a lot of rooms. I chose where I would be sleeping right away. But the house needed to get cleaned, which we decided to start the following day. Dad said that I should take a week off before starting and going to my new school. I am very anxious about going to a new school. Nobody likes the new ones. Nobody wants to be friends with the new kids because everyone already has their friends. I knew that it was going to be very hard for me. But I will try my best to fit in this new city and help out Mom and Dad. We were tired that night, and all we did was sleep in our own rooms. I opened the room window to get some fresh air and looked around. It looked like that room used to be a kid's room. There were a lot of toys and kids' clothes. I thought I'd be scared to fall asleep there, but I had the best sleep. It was a beautiful, sunny morning. I could hear the birds singing. What a lovely way of waking up. I was glad that I had a good sleep because a very tiring day was ahead of us. Cleaning day. I got up and went to the living room. Mom and Dad had woken up before I did, and they had already started cleaning. I had a very quick morning and began to help too. The house was looking so much better. But there was a lot of stuff that needed to get rid of. I was going in and out of the house, throwing the trash. Then, my eye caught something. Behind the house, there was a little garage, a room. It had no windows. I didn't know if Dad or Mom had already gone in, but I was curious. So I decided to get in and see what was there. When I opened the door, it immediately fell to the ground. It scared me. The room was full of dust and millions of papers with writings on the floor. It looked like that room was where the house owner studied or worked. I took one of the papers on the ground and read it. But I couldn't understand any of it. There were a lot of formulas. I was never good with numbers in general. But the house owner was definitely a math or a physicist professor. As I was looking around that room, trying to find interesting stuff to tell Mom and Dad, I stepped on something weird. The ground was making strange noises when I stepped in. So I took the carpet off and noticed a little wooden door that could possibly take you underground. At first, I didn't want to go in because God knows what could be there. It could be something dangerous. But curiosity was killing me. I could hear Mom and Dad talking in a near distance. It made me confident about going into that door. I opened the door and walked some tiny wooden stairs. It was a small room and very dark. But not dark enough to press on the light there, hoping that it was still working. The light was glitching but still working, luckily. There were a lot of machines and pieces of metal. The house owner must have been working on something. All of the work seemed to be unfinished, except one. There was something that looked like a toy and was made of metal. I thought the house owner must have loved their kids, making them toys. The toy was a big circle, and it was heavy. There was the option of turning it on and off. I tried to turn it on and see what happened with that toy, but it was not working. God knows how old was that toy. Then, on its back, instructions were written on using it. It was noted that I should put my fingertip in a specific place. That's what I did. The second I put my finger in there, the toy started making noises. Then, a question pops up, past or future? I didn't understand what that meant. Could it be a game with words? Grammarly tenses? Let's give it a try, I said. I got nothing to lose. I was bored around the house. So, my mind was saying that I should press past. That's what I did. I pushed it, not knowing that my life would change forever. The second I pressed it, big noise and wind happened in the room. I was confused, not knowing what was happening. I yelled as much as I could for my mom and dad. I was scared. But no one could hear me. The noises lasted for a good minute, then everything went dark. I don't remember anything that happened next, but I opened my eyes, and I found myself in the bed in one of the house's rooms. I must have fallen asleep. I got up, thinking how lucky I was that all of that was just a dream. I got up and looked around. Everything was different. The house was not how I got used to seeing it. The home was new. The furniture, the bedsheets, and everything. The sun's light was coming from the window, and it looked like it was summer. But we were in the middle of autumn. The other day was raining. What was happening? Was I dreaming again? I get out of the room. Walking, looking at the hallway and the stairs, wondering why they were brand new. I could hear people talking. Our mom and dad already begun to bring people in? I couldn't recognize the voices, and I shouted from upstairs, calling Mom. The people that I heard talking stopped for some seconds. I could hear some steps coming upstairs and someone saying, "Who is calling?" A woman was speaking, and it clearly wasn't my mom. Who was she, and why was she inside our house? Where were Mom and Dad? I got into one of the rooms and hid in the closet. I could hear the woman searching room by room and then came into the room where I was hiding. I could see her from the closet a little bit. The woman was of the same age as my mom. But she looked like she was from the years 80s or something. The woman was wearing a long dress and had gloves to her elbow. Her makeup was funny and very old-fashioned. She looked like she came out of an old movie. I had never seen her face before. I pinched myself, trying to wake up from this weird dream, but unfortunately, I wasn't dreaming. I had no other choice but to stay in that closet until I figured out what was happening. After some minutes, I could hear kids' voices playing around and came to my room. There was a boy and a girl. They were about 10-year-old or something like this. They began to play with some toys there. The clothes that the kids were wearing looked old too. I didn't want to scare them. I went out of the closet very quietly, telling them to not make a sound and not tell anyone that I was there. But the kids seemed scared and confused. Luckily, they didn't make a sound. They listened to me. I asked them if I could borrow their phone to call Mom and get out of the house. But the kids said that they don't have a phone. They said that I could write a letter. A letter? Are they kidding me? I thought they were joking at first, but they had never had a phone before. But still, the kids offered to help me to get out of the house without anyone seeing me. And that's what we did. Step by step, I made it outside. As I was ready to get out of the back of the house, I noticed the room where I was for the last time. The door was opened, and I could hear someone working on something. I asked the kids who were in there and what was the person doing. The kids said their father wanted to discover something that would make humans go back in time. But they said that I shouldn't be telling anyone. And that's when it hit me. That's what had happened. I must have traveled back in time. Never knew that this was possible until now. I must find a way to get back to Mom and Dad. I didn't want to be stuck here forever. They don't even have phones. But how do I get into that room was the question. I told the kids that I had changed my mind and wanted to stay for a little longer without anyone knowing. They said I could stay in their room and sleep under their bed. That's where I spent some time. I could see from the room if the man was working inside that room or not, so I could go in there. But the man was there non-stop. Then the woman called everyone for dinner. The kids had gone, and the man went out of the room. He was old, and his hair had almost fallen. He had glasses. I noticed that he had left the door open. I had never run faster in my life. I went into that room and searched for that toy that I had pressed my fingerprint in, or should I say the time travel machine. The time travel machine looked so new and could easily read the construction. I put on my fingerprint precisely as I did the other time, and the question popped up again: past or future. I wanted to get back home, but it got me thinking, what if I go even some years ahead? Will humans still exist? I was so curious that I clicked on future as fast as possible. The process of traveling back in time happened the same. This time, I was not scared of the wind, noises, or darkness. After some minutes, I opened my eyes and saw myself in the same spot, but everything was different. The house that we moved in was destroyed. It was just land. There weren't any trees. The only thing left was the room where the time travel machine was. But there were still other houses in the neighborhood. It was so silent. I stayed there for some minutes, figuring out what the future looked like. But it didn't seem like it was any big difference. I started walking and noticed that all the windows of the houses were covered with blankets and would like the earth was dominated by zombies. Where were the people? I wanted to walk and figure it out, but it was a very hot day. I must have traveled in the middle of the summer. It was so hot that I could barely breathe properly. I was in need of water. As I wanted to knock on the door of a house near, a very loud noise flew through my head. I looked up at the sky, and cars were flying around. Did the humans make it finally? Did we make cars fly? I was so excited to see it. There were humans in it, driving the cars. I noticed that the humans were wearing masks, and I couldn't understand why. I couldn't think straight without having a bottle of water. So, I knocked on the door of a house, and a woman answered. She was wearing a mask too. But not just any mask. It was a huge mask. She said to me, "Where is your mask? You could die any second." She explained to me as much as she could. telling me that we were in the year 2222 and that the human race had lost every inch of nature. The animals were disappearing, and the level of oxygen was very low. The woman said that nobody can live without a mask anymore. She offered me help and said I could go inside her house, but I got other important things. I needed to return to the current year and warn everyone about the future. The woman was confused. I ran as fast as I could, barely breathing. I could feel my knees getting weak. But I had to make it to the room and travel back in time. So, that's what I did. I woke up and found myself in the room of our new house. Mom and Dad called my name, saying that I only had been gone for some minutes. They asked me if I was all right because I looked like I had seen a ghost. But, little do they know that what I had witnessed was much worse. I didn't want to tell anyone about this before I could ruin this machine. I know that people would kill for this. So, I broke it into pieces and buried it in the ground of our house. I don't know if anyone would believe me, but all I know is that we should take care of our earth, of our nature. It's where we live. If we don't take care of the earth,